A cunning young man tried to con a millionaire widow, but when she revealed her true identity, Alex Reeves had always been a master of deception. From a young age, he learned that a charming smile and a well-crafted lie could open doors that hard work and honesty never could. Growing up in a middle-class suburb of Boston, Alex yearned for the luxurious life he saw in movies and magazines. He was handsome, with piercing blue eyes and a mop of tousled brown hair that gave him a roguish appeal. But more than his looks, it was his quick wit and silver tongue that set him apart. At 28, Alex had already left a trail of broken hearts and empty bank accounts in his wake. He moved from city to city, reinventing himself with each new con. In New York, he posed as a tech entrepreneur, wooing investors with promises of revolutionary apps. In Miami, he played the role of a trust fund baby, living large on credit cards opened in the names of unsuspecting victims. But Alex was getting tired of the constant hustle, the fear of being caught that lingered at the edges of his consciousness. He dreamed of one big score that would set him up for life. That's when he heard about Evelyn Rothschild. Evelyn was a 62-year-old widow, sole heir to the Rothschild shipping fortune. Worth an estimated $500 million, she was known for her philanthropy and her loneliness. Since her husband's death 5 years ago, Evelyn had retreated from society, rarely leaving her sprawling estate on the outskirts of San Francisco. As Alex pored over articles about Evelyn, a plan began to form in his mind. It would be his most audacious con yet. He would make Evelyn Rothschild fall in love with him, marry her, and then disappear with as much of her fortune as he could get his hands on. He spent months crafting his new identity. Gone was Alex Reeves, the charming drifter. In his place stood Alexander Cavendish, scion of a respected but financially ruined British family, dedicated conservationist and all-around good guy. Alex worked tirelessly to build a digital footprint for his new persona, creating fake social media profiles and even a website for a non-existent wildlife conservation organization. As he boarded a plane to San Francisco, Alex felt a familiar thrill of excitement. This was what he lived for: the challenge, the risk, the promise of a life-changing payday. Little did he know that this con would indeed change his life, but not in the way he imagined. For in Evelyn Rothschild, Alex was about to meet his match. A woman whose wisdom and cunning would teach him the most expensive lesson of his life. The annual Rothschild Foundation Gala was in full swing when Alex made his entrance. The grand ballroom of the Fairmont San Francisco sparkled with champagne flutes and diamond jewelry as the city's elite mingled and pretended to care about the foundation's latest charitable endeavors. Alex, dressed in an impeccably tailored tuxedo, surveyed the room with practiced nonchalance. His target sat at a table near the center of the room, a glass of white wine untouched before her. Evelyn Rothschild was still striking, her silver hair elegantly coiffed, her posture regal. But Alex could see the loneliness in her eyes, the slight tremor in her hand as she reached for her glass. Perfect, he thought. Just perfect. He made his way across the room, pausing to chat with various guests, building his presence in the room. Finally, he approached Evelyn's table, champagne flute in hand. "Mrs. Rothschild," he said, his British accent flawless. "I hope I'm not intruding, but I simply had to come over and express my admiration for your foundation's work in marine conservation. The program to protect sea turtle nesting sites in Costa Rica is truly inspirational." Evelyn looked up, surprise and interest flickering across her face. "Thank you, Mr. Cavendish," Alex supplied smoothly. "Alexander Cavendish. I run a small wildlife conservation organization in London. Nothing on the scale of your foundation, of course, but we're passionate about our work." "Please, sit down, Mr. Cavendish," Evelyn said, gesturing to the empty chair beside her. "I'd love to hear more about your organization." And so began the dance. Over the next hour, Alex regaled Evelyn with stories of his fictional conservation work, peppered with just enough self-deprecating humor and modesty to seem genuine. He watched as Evelyn's reserve melted away, replaced by genuine enthusiasm as they discussed shared passions for wildlife and philanthropy. As the evening wore on, Alex felt a twinge of something unfamiliar. He was enjoying himself, truly enjoying Evelyn's company. Her intelligence and wit matched his own, and her passion for her charitable work was infectious. For a moment, he almost forgot why he was there. But then Evelyn mentioned her late husband, and Alex saw his opening. He let his smile fade, allowing a carefully crafted look of empathetic understanding to cross his face. "I'm so sorry for your loss," he said softly. I know how difficult it can be to lose someone you love." Evelyn's eyes widened slightly. "You've experienced loss as well?" Alex nodded, looking down at his hands. "My fiancée," he said, his voice thick with emotion he didn't feel. "Car accident, 3 years ago. Some days it still feels like yesterday." He felt Evelyn's hand cover his own, a gesture of comfort that sent a jolt of triumph through him. He had her. "Oh, Alexander," she said, her voice full of compassion. "I'm so sorry. It does get easier with time, but the pain never truly goes away, does it?" Alex looked up, allowing a sheen of tears to glisten in his eyes. "No," he agreed. "It doesn't. But meeting people like you, Mrs. Rothschild, people who channel their grief into making the world a better place, it gives me hope." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of meaningful glances and shared confidences. By the time the gala was winding down, Alex had secured an invitation to visit Evelyn at her estate to discuss potential collaboration between their organizations. As he hailed a taxi outside the hotel, Alex couldn't keep the grin off his face. Phase 1 of his plan had gone off without a hitch. Evelyn was already half in love with him. He was sure of it. A few more meetings, a whirlwind romance, and he'd be walking down the aisle before she knew what hit her. But as the taxi wound its way through the San Francisco streets, Alex couldn't shake a nagging feeling of unease. Something about Evelyn had gotten under his skin. Her kindness, her genuine passion for her work, the wisdom in her eyes. It was all so different from the vapid socialites and greedy businessmen he usually targeted. For the first time in years, Alex felt a flicker of doubt about his chosen path. But he pushed it aside, focusing instead on the promise of the wealth that would soon be his. After all, he told himself, he was too far down this road to turn back now. Little did he know that this road would lead him to a destination he never could have imagined. Over the next few weeks, Alex's plan progressed smoothly. He visited Evelyn at her estate several times, each visit carefully orchestrated to deepen their connection. They walked through her extensive gardens, discussing plans for wildlife conservation projects. They shared intimate dinners where Alex regaled Evelyn with more tales of his fictional adventures and listened attentively to her stories of her late husband and their life together. With each meeting, Alex could see Evelyn falling deeper under his spell. She laughed more freely, touched his arm more frequently, and looked at him with an unmistakable sparkle in her eyes. It was all going according to plan. Or so he thought. It was during one of these visits, about a month after the gala, that Alex made a startling discovery. He had excused himself to use the bathroom, and on his way back, he took a wrong turn. Instead of returning to the sunroom where Evelyn was waiting, he found himself in a small, cluttered study. Curiosity got the better of him, and he stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room for anything of interest. That's when he saw it, a framed photograph on the desk, partially obscured by stacks of papers. Alex moved closer, his heart racing as he picked up the frame. The photo showed a much younger Evelyn, maybe in her 30s, standing next to a man who looked eerily familiar. It took Alex a moment to place him, but when he did, he felt the blood drain from his face. The man in the photo was none other than Richard Cooper, one of the most notorious con men of the 20th century. Alex had studied Cooper's exploits, modeled some of his own cons after the master's work. But what was he doing in a photo with Evelyn? And why did they look so close? "I see you've found my favorite photo." Evelyn's voice came from behind him, causing Alex to nearly drop the frame in shock. He turned, his mind racing to come up with an explanation, but the words died on his lips when he saw the look in Evelyn's eyes. Gone was the soft, vulnerable widow. In her place stood a woman with a sharp, knowing gaze that seemed to see right through him. "That's Richard Me in Monte Carlo, 1985. Evelyn continued, moving into the room. "It was right after we pulled off the Jensen jewel heist. 40 million in diamonds, right under the noses of Interpol. Ah, those were the days." Alex stood frozen, unable to process what he was hearing. Evelyn Rothschild, the philanthropist widow, was talking about pulling off heists. "Oh, come now, Alexander," Evelyn said, a hint of amusement in her voice. "Or should I say, Alex Reeves? Did you really think I wouldn't do my homework? I may be old, but I'm far from foolish. The realization hit Alex like a ton of bricks. He hadn't been conning Evelyn, she had been playing him from the start. But the foundation, the charity work. Alex stammered. Evelyn laughed, a rich, genuine sound that held no malice. Oh, that's all real. Richard and I retired from the game years ago. We decided to use our skills for a greater good. But once a con artist, always a con artist. I spotted you the moment you walked into that gala. As the full implications of his discovery sank in, Alex felt his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. He had thought he was the spider, weaving an intricate web to catch his prey. Instead, he found himself tangled in a much larger, more complex web, one spun by a true master of the game. Alex's mind raced as he stood in Evelyn's study, the photograph of her and Richard Cooper still clutched in his trembling hands. His carefully laid plans, his dreams of wealth and an easy life were crumbling before his eyes. But more than that, his entire identity, the cocky, infallible con man, was being called into question. For a moment he considered running. It was his usual modus operandi when a con went south. But something held him in place. Maybe it was shock, or maybe it was a grudging respect for the woman who had so thoroughly outplayed him. "So," he said finally, his voice hoarse, "what happens now? You turn me into the police?" Evelyn's laugh surprised him. It was warm, almost affectionate. "Oh, Alex," she said, shaking her head. "If I wanted to turn you in, I would have done it the moment you walked into that gala. No, I have something else in mind." She moved to a small bar in the corner of the study and poured 2 glasses of scotch. Handing one to Alex, she gestured for him to sit in one of the plush armchairs. "I'm going to offer you a choice," Evelyn said, settling into the chair opposite him. "One that I was offered many years ago when I was much like you, young, talented, and headed down a path that could only end in prison or worse." Alex took a long sip of the scotch, feeling the burn of the alcohol ground him in the surreal moment. "I'm listening," he said cautiously. "Choice number 1," Evelyn began. "You walk out that door right now. I won't stop you, but know this. I have enough evidence of your past cons to put you away for a very long time. I won't use it. Unless you ever try to con anyone again, if you choose this path, you'll need to find a new way to live, an honest way." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. The thought of giving up the con, of living a normal life, was almost unthinkable. "But the alternative, and choice number 2?" he asked. A smile played at the corners of Evelyn's mouth. "You stay," she said simply. "You work for me, for the foundation. We use your skills, your real skills, not the fake conservation expertise, to help people, to right wrongs, to con the corrupt and give back to those who have been cheated." Alex blinked, sure he had misheard. "You want me to con people for charity?" Evelyn nodded. "It's what Richard and I did for years before we retired. There's a lot of bad people out there, Alex. People who have gotten rich by exploiting others, by bending and breaking the law. We redistribute that wealth, and we have a lot of fun doing it." The offer was tempting, more tempting than Alex wanted to admit. The thought of using his skills for a greater purpose, of feeling the thrill of the con without the constant fear of being caught, it stirred something in him he thought had long since died. But doubt nagged at him. "How do I know this isn't just another con?" he asked. "How do I know I can trust you?" Evelyn's eyes softened. "You don't," she said honestly. "Trust is earned, Alex. I'm offering you a chance to earn it, both mine and your own." Alex stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the manicured gardens of the estate. He thought about his life, about the constant moving, the fake identities, the hollow victories of each successful con. He thought about the look in Evelyn's eyes when she talked about her charitable work, the passion that he had initially dismissed as naive but now recognized as something deeper, more fulfilling. In that moment, Alex made a decision that would alter the course of his life. He turned back to Evelyn, a new resolve in his eyes. "Okay," he said, "I'm in. Teach me." Evelyn's smile was radiant. "Excellent," she said, standing up. "We'll start tomorrow. But first, there's something we need to do." She led Alex to her home office, where a sleek computer sat on an antique desk. "Time to say goodbye to Alexander Cavendish," she said, gesturing to the computer. "We're going to erase every trace of that identity from the internet. From now on, you'll be Alex Reeves in every aspect of your life. No more lies, no more fake personas. Just you, using your real skills for a greater good. As Alex watched his carefully crafted fake identity disappear from the digital world, he felt a strange mix of loss and liberation. He was stepping into unknown territory, leaving behind the safety net of his multiple identities. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. That night, as he lay in the guest room Evelyn had prepared for him, Alex reflected on the whirlwind of events that had led him to this point. He had come to San Francisco with dreams of wealth and an easy life. Instead, he was embarking on a journey that promised to be anything but easy, but potentially far more rewarding than he could have imagined. As he drifted off to sleep, Alex realized that for the first time in years, he was looking forward to the future with genuine excitement and hope. The con man who had come to steal a fortune was gone. In his place was a man ready to earn something far more valuable: redemption. As Alex settled into his new role at the Rothschild Foundation, a secondary plot began to unfold, one that would test his newfound commitment to his honest identity and noble cause. Thomas Blackwood, a ruthless real estate mogul, had set his sights on a low-income neighborhood in San Francisco's Mission District. Blackwood's plan was to buy up properties, evict longtime residents, and replace affordable housing with luxury condominiums. The community was in uproar, but Blackwood's deep pockets and political connections made him seem untouchable. Evelyn brought the case to Alex's attention during one of their strategy sessions. "This is exactly the kind of situation where our unique skills can make a difference," she explained, spreading out news clippings and property records on her desk. "Blackwood's not just displacing people, he's breaking laws and bribing officials to do it. But he's careful. There's no paper trail." Alex studied the documents, his mind already racing with potential angles. "So you want us to find proof of his illegal activities?" Evelyn's eyes twinkled with mischief. "Oh, we're going to do more than that. We're going to con him into incriminating himself, and we're going to save that neighborhood in the process." Over the next few weeks, Alex immersed himself in the details of Blackwood's operation. He studied the mogul's habits, his associates, his weaknesses. It was familiar work, the kind of preparation he'd done for countless cons in the past. But this time, the rush he felt wasn't from the prospect of personal gain, but from the knowledge that his skills could help an entire community. As he worked, Alex found himself growing close to Maria Gonzalez, a community organizer leading the fight against Blackwood's development. Maria was fierce, passionate, and initially skeptical of the dapper young man who claimed he wanted to help. But as they worked together, gathering information and rallying the community, a tentative trust began to form. One evening, as they shared a late dinner of takeout tacos after a community meeting, Maria turned to Alex with a searching look. "Why are you really doing this, Alex? What's in it for you?" The question caught Alex off guard. In the past, he would have had a smooth lie ready, a fake motivation designed to gain trust. But now, committed to his new path of honesty, he found himself telling Maria the truth, or at least part of it. "I've done things I'm not proud of," he admitted, avoiding her gaze. This is my chance to make amends, to use my skills to help people instead of hurting them." He looked up, expecting to see judgment in Maria's eyes. Instead, he saw understanding and something that might have been admiration. "We've all made mistakes, Alex," she said softly. "It's what we choose to do next that defines us." As Maria's words sank in, Alex felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the spicy tacos. He realized that in his quest to take down Blackwood and prove himself to Evelyn, he had found something he hadn't even known he was looking for. A genuine connection with someone who saw him for who he truly was. But even as Alex reveled in this new feeling, a complication loomed on the horizon. Unbeknownst to him, an old associate from his conman days had recognized him at a community meeting. Joey the Rat Marino was a small-time crook with a grudge against Alex, and he sensed an opportunity for revenge. As Alex worked to bring down Blackwood and protect the community, Joey began plotting in the shadows, threatening to unravel everything Alex was working towards and expose his past to Maria and the community he had grown to care for. As the campaign against Blackwood's development intensified, so did Alex's relationships with both Evelyn and Maria. Each day brought new challenges, and Alex found himself relying on both women in different ways. Evelyn became more than just a mentor. She was a partner in their intricate plan to expose Blackwood. Their days were filled with strategy sessions, where Alex's quick thinking and Evelyn's years of experience combined to create schemes of dizzying complexity. But it was during their quieter moments, often late at night over cups of tea, that their bond truly deepened. One such night, after a particularly challenging day, Evelyn shared stories of her life with Richard. Not just their cons, but the love they had shared, the dreams they had built together. Richard always said that the greatest con of all was convincing the world that we had gone straight, she chuckled, a wistful look in her eyes. But in the end, I think we conned ourselves. We fell in love with the life we had pretended to live. Alex listened, mesmerized. He had always seen his cons as a means to an end, a way to get rich quick. The idea of finding genuine fulfillment, of building a life of purpose through his skills, was still new to him. "Do you ever regret giving up the old life?" he asked. Evelyn's smile was soft but sure. "Not for a moment," she said. "There's a thrill in outsmarting the mark, sure, but using those same skills to help people, to right wrongs, that's a high like no other." She reached out and squeezed Alex's hand. "You'll see." As his connection with Evelyn grew, Alex's relationship with Maria was evolving in a different, equally powerful way. Their work together brought them closer. Long strategy sessions, blending seamlessly into personal conversations. Alex found himself opening up to her in ways he never had with anyone before. One weekend, they took a break from their campaign to explore the neighborhood they were fighting to save. Maria showed Alex her favorite panaderias, introduced him to local artists, and shared stories of growing up in the vibrant community. As they sat in a small park, watching children play and elderly couples stroll hand in hand, Alex felt a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. "I think I'm starting to understand," he said softly. Maria looked at him quizzically. "Understand what?" "Why this matters so much," Alex replied, gesturing around them. "It's not just about buildings or property values, it's about people, about connections, about home." Maria's smile was radiant. "Exactly," she said. "This is what we're fighting for." In that moment, looking at Maria's passionate eyes and feeling the warmth of the community around him, Alex realized he was falling in love. Not just with Maria, but with the idea of being part of something bigger than himself. But even as these relationships blossomed, the shadow of Alex's past loomed. Joey the Rat Marino had been busy, digging up dirt on Alex's previous cons. One day, as Alex and Maria were leaving a community meeting, Joey approached them, a sly grin on his face. Well, if it isn't Alex Reeves," Joey drawled, ignoring Maria's confused look. "Or should I say Alexander Cavendish? Or was it Adam Reynolds last month in Chicago? I can never keep track of your names, buddy." Alex felt his blood run cold. He saw the confusion in Maria's eyes turn to suspicion, then hurt. Before he could say anything, Maria turned and walked away quickly, leaving Alex torn between confronting Joey and going after her. In that moment, Alex realized that the web of relationships he had been building was as fragile as it was precious. He had come to value Evelyn's mentorship, Maria's trust, and the respect of the community. Now, with a few words, Joey had threatened to unravel it all. As he watched Maria's retreating figure, Alex knew he had a choice to make. He could run, as he had always done when a con went wrong, or he could stay, face the consequences of his past, and fight for the new life and relationships he had built. With a deep breath, Alex turned to Joey. "We need to talk," he said firmly. Then, with a silent prayer that he wasn't too late, he set off after Maria. The biggest con of his life, convincing those he had come to care for that he was truly a changed man, was about to begin. And this time, the stakes were higher than they had ever been before. The day of reckoning arrived sooner than Alex had anticipated. Blackwood had called for a town hall meeting to present his development plans, and the community was out in force to oppose him. The tension in the air was palpable as Alex, Evelyn, and Maria entered the packed community center. Blackwood stood at the podium, all smooth charm and hollow promises, but Alex barely heard him. His eyes were scanning the crowd, looking for Joey. He knew the rat wouldn't miss an opportunity like this to cause chaos. As Blackwood droned on about urban renewal and economic opportunities, Alex felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to see Maria, her eyes filled with a mix of hurt and determination. "We need to talk," she whispered. "Now." They slipped out into the hallway, the muffled sounds of the meeting following them. Before Alex could speak, Maria held up a hand. "Joey came to see me," she said, her voice tight. "He told me everything, Alex. About your cons, about all the people you've hurt. Is it true?" Alex felt the world tilt beneath his feet. This was the moment he had been dreading, the moment of truth he knew would come but had hoped to avoid. He looked into Maria's eyes, seeing the trust they had built teetering on the edge of shattering. In that instant, Alex made a decision. No more lies, no more cons. If he was going to lose everything, it would be on his own terms, with the truth. "Yes," he said simply. "It's true. All of it. I was a con man, Maria. I hurt people, stole from them, all for my own gain. But I'm not that person anymore. Meeting Evelyn, working with you, being part of this community, it's changed me. I know you might not believe me, but..." His words were cut off by a commotion from the meeting room. They rushed back in to see Joey at the microphone, his face twisted in a malicious grin. "Ladies and gentlemen," he was saying, "I think you should know who you're really dealing with here. Your boy Alex Reeves? He's a fraud, a con man. He's probably working with Blackwood too." "That's enough," the voice rang out, clear and commanding. To Alex's shock, it was Evelyn who had stood up, her eyes blazing. "You want to talk about frauds, Mr. Marino? Let's talk about the real fraud in this room." With that, Evelyn launched into a blistering expose of Blackwood's illegal activities. She presented documents, played recordings, laid bare every shady deal and bribed official. The room erupted into chaos as Blackwood sputtered denials and his associates tried to flee. In the midst of the uproar, Alex felt a hand slip into his. He looked down to see Maria beside him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I don't know if I can trust you, Alex," she said softly. "But what you've done here, for this community, it matters. You've changed lives." Before Alex could respond, he saw Joey pushing his way towards them, his face contorted with rage. Time seemed to slow as Joey reached into his jacket, the glint of metal visible for a split second before he pulled out a gun. "You ruined everything," Joey screamed, aiming at Alex. What happened next was a blur. Alex moved instinctively, pushing Maria out of the way. He heard the deafening crack of the gunshot, felt a searing pain in his shoulder, and then the world went black. As consciousness faded, Alex's last thought was a strange mix of regret and hope. He might have failed to fully redeem himself, but at least, in the end, he had finally done something truly selfless. Alex drifted in and out of consciousness, vague impressions of bright lights, urgent voices, and the antiseptic smell of a hospital filtering through the haze of pain and medication. When he finally fully awoke, he found himself in a private hospital room, his left shoulder heavily bandaged. As his vision cleared, he saw Evelyn sitting by his bedside, her usually impeccable appearance slightly disheveled, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she had been there for some time. "Welcome back," she said softly, a mix of relief and something else, pride perhaps, in her voice. Alex tried to speak, but his throat was dry. Evelyn helped him sip some water before he managed to croak out, "What happened? Is Maria okay?" Evelyn's features softened. "Maria is fine, thanks to you. Joey's in custody. And Blackwood?" She allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. "Let's just say he'll be trading his penthouse for a cell with a considerably less impressive view." As the events leading up to the shooting came back to him, Alex felt a wave of anxiety wash over him. "Everyone knows now, don't they? About my past?" Evelyn nodded slowly. "Yes, they do. Joey made quite sure of that before he pulled out that gun. But Alex, that's not the whole story anymore." She proceeded to fill him in on what had transpired while he was unconscious. The community, despite learning of Alex's checkered past, had rallied around him. His actions in helping to expose Blackwood and his selfless act of protecting Maria had spoken louder than Joey's accusations. "You've got a long road ahead of you," Evelyn said frankly. "Trust, once broken, isn't easily regained, but you've got a foundation to build on now. Real actions, real connections." As if on cue, there was a soft knock at the door. Maria entered, her face a complex mix of emotions as she saw Alex awake. "I'll give you two some privacy," Evelyn said, standing to leave. She paused at the door, looking back at Alex. "Remember, my boy, the biggest cons are the ones we tell ourselves. It's time to start being honest with yourself and everyone else." As the door closed behind Evelyn, an uncomfortable silence fell between Alex and Maria. Finally, Maria spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "You saved my life." Alex shook his head slightly. "I put you in danger in the first place. If I hadn't—" "Stop," Maria interrupted. "I've had a lot of time to think while you were unconscious. About you, about everything that's happened. I'm not going to pretend that learning about your past didn't hurt. It did. I trusted you, and I felt betrayed." Alex felt a heavy weight settle in his chest. This was it, the moment he would lose her for good. But Maria wasn't finished. "The thing is, Alex, the person I got to know over these past weeks, the person who fought for our community, who made me laugh, who listened to my dreams and shared his own, that person is real. I believe that now." She moved closer, taking his hand in hers. "I can't just forget what you did in the past, but I also can't ignore who you are now and what you've done for us. I'm willing to try, Alex, to see where this goes, but I need you to promise me something." "Anything," Alex said, hardly daring to believe what he was hearing. "No more lies," Maria said firmly. "Not to me, not to the community, and most importantly, not to yourself. Can you do that?" Alex felt tears welling up in his eyes. "I promise," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "No more lies, no more cons, just me, whoever that turns out to be." Maria's smile was small but genuine. "That's who I want to get to know." Over the next few weeks, as Alex recovered, he faced the daunting task of rebuilding trust with the community. It wasn't easy. There were those who couldn't look past his history, who viewed his recent actions as just another long con. But there were others who were willing to give him a chance, impressed by his role in bringing down Blackwood and protecting their neighborhood. Alex threw himself into community service, volunteering at local shelters, tutoring kids in math and science, using his skills not to deceive, but to truly help. Slowly, tentatively, he began to find his place in the community he had grown to love. His relationship with Maria progressed cautiously, but steadily. There were difficult conversations, moments of doubt, but also laughter, shared dreams, and a deepening understanding of each other. Through it all, Evelyn remained a steadfast presence, guiding Alex as he navigated this new honest life. She helped him use his talents for good, teaching him the intricacies of philanthropy and ethical business practices. As the weeks turned into months, Alex found himself transformed. The thrill he had once gotten from executing the perfect con paled in comparison to the satisfaction of making a real difference in people's lives. He was building something genuine, something lasting, and the sense of fulfillment it brought was unlike anything he had ever experienced. However, the path to redemption was far from smooth. There were setbacks and challenges that tested Alex's newfound commitment to honesty and integrity. One particularly difficult moment came when a local business owner, still skeptical of Alex's transformation, accused him of embezzling funds from a community project. The accusation hit Alex hard, not just because it was false, but because it brought all of his past mistakes crashing back into focus. For a moment, he was tempted to fall back on his old habits, to craft a clever lie or manipulate the situation to his advantage. But he remembered his promise to Maria and the trust Evelyn had placed in him. Instead of running or hiding, Alex faced the accusation head-on. He worked with Evelyn to open up all the project's financial records for public scrutiny. He volunteered to step down from his role in the project until the matter was resolved. It was a humbling experience, but it also proved to be a turning point. As the community pored over the records and saw the transparent way Alex handled the situation, opinions began to shift. The business owner who had made the accusation eventually retracted it and offered a public apology. More importantly, Alex's honest approach had won him new allies and deepened the trust of those who had already chosen to give him a second chance. Through all of this, Maria stood by him, her unwavering support a constant source of strength. Their relationship deepened as they faced these challenges together. Alex found himself opening up to her in ways he never had with anyone before, sharing not just his past mistakes but his hopes for the future. One evening, as they walked along the beach, hand in hand, Maria turned to him with a serious expression. "Alex," she said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." Alex felt a flutter of anxiety but nodded. "Of course, anything." Maria took a deep breath. "Are you happy? I mean, truly happy with this new life? Do you ever miss the excitement of your old ways?" Alex was quiet for a moment, considering the question carefully. It was something he had pondered himself many times over the past months. Finally, he spoke, his voice soft but sure. "There are moments," he admitted, "when I miss the adrenaline rush of pulling off a big con. It was exciting, and for a long time, it was all I knew." He saw a flicker of concern in Maria's eyes, and quickly continued. "But that excitement was always fleeting. It left me feeling empty, always looking for the next big score." He stopped walking and turned to face Maria fully. "What I've found here, with you, with this community, it's so much more than excitement. It's purpose, it's belonging, He paused, searching for the right words. "It's like I've spent my whole life running, and for the first time I've found a place I want to stay, a life I want to build." Maria's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she listened. When Alex finished, she pulled him into a tight embrace. "That's all I needed to hear," she whispered. As they stood there, the sun setting over the ocean, Alex felt a sense of peace wash over him. He knew there would be more challenges ahead. His past would always be a part of him, and there would always be those who doubted his change of heart. But he also knew that he had found something worth fighting for. A genuine life, filled with love, purpose, and the opportunity to make a real difference. The journey of redemption was far from over, but with every honest action, every genuine connection, Alex was writing a new chapter in his story. And for the first time in his life, he was truly excited to see how it would unfold. As Alex continued to integrate himself into the community and build a life of integrity, an unexpected opportunity arose that would mark a significant turning point in his journey. The local community college, impressed by Alex's transformation and his dedication to helping others, approached him with an offer to teach a course on financial literacy and ethical business practices. At first, Alex was hesitant. The idea of standing in front of a classroom, sharing knowledge and experiences, seemed daunting. More than that, he worried about how his past might impact his ability to be an effective teacher. Would students respect him if they knew about his history as a con man? Evelyn, ever the wise mentor, encouraged him to see it as an opportunity rather than a challenge. "Your past is precisely what makes you qualified for this, Alex," she said. "You understand the allure of quick money and unethical practices because you've lived it. But you also understand the value of integrity and honest work. You can teach from a place of real experience." Maria, too, threw her support behind the idea. "Think of all the young people you could help," she said. "You could prevent others from making the same mistakes you did. Isn't that worth facing your fears?" Their words resonated with Alex, and after much soul-searching, he decided to accept the offer. Preparing for the course forced Alex to confront his past in new ways. He had to analyze his old cons, not with pride in their cleverness, but with a critical eye towards the harm they had caused and the ethical principles they had violated. As he stood in front of his first class, Alex felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. He took a deep breath and began his lecture with a statement he never thought he'd make. "My name is Alex Reeves, and I used to be a con man. Today, I'm here to teach you about the true value of ethical business practices and financial responsibility." The stunned silence that followed was quickly replaced by rapt attention as Alex shared his story and the lessons he had learned. By the end of the lecture, he knew he had made the right decision. The engaged faces of his students, their thoughtful questions, and their evident appreciation for his honesty reinforced Alex's new direction in life. This new role as an educator opened up a whole new world for Alex. It allowed him to use his skills and experiences in a positive way, to mentor young people, and to continue his own journey of growth and redemption. As he left the classroom that day, Alex felt a profound sense of purpose. He was no longer just atoning for his past, he was actively shaping a better future. A year had passed since Alex first walked into the Rothschild Foundation Gala with the intention of conning Evelyn. As he stood on the balcony of his modest apartment, overlooking the neighborhood he had grown to love, he marveled at how much had changed. The man who had once measured his worth by the size of his cons now found fulfillment in the genuine connections he had forged and the lives he had positively impacted. His classes at the community college had become hugely popular, with students often staying after hours to discuss ethics, business, and life lessons. He had even been approached about writing a book about his experiences and the importance of ethical business practices. But it wasn't just his professional life that had transformed. Alex's personal growth was evident in every aspect of his life. He had learned to be vulnerable, to admit his mistakes, and to ask for help when he needed it. His relationship with Maria had deepened into a partnership built on trust, mutual respect, and shared values. They had recently started talking about marriage and a future together, a concept that would have terrified the old Alex, but now filled him with joy and anticipation. His friendship with Evelyn had evolved as well. She was no longer just a mentor, but a trusted confidante and partner in their philanthropic efforts. Together, they had expanded the Rothschild Foundation's reach, using their combined skills to create innovative programs that made a real difference in people's lives. As Alex reflected on his journey, he realized that the most significant change was in how he viewed himself. The constant need to prove his cleverness, to outsmart everyone around him, had faded. In its place was a quiet confidence, a sense of self-worth that came not from external validation, but from living in alignment with his values. There were still challenging days, moments when the temptation of an easy con whispered in his ear, or when the weight of his past threatened to overwhelm him. But Alex had developed the tools to face these challenges head-on. He had a support system, a purpose, and a deep-seated commitment to the person he had become. One evening, as Alex was preparing dinner for Maria, Evelyn, and a few close friends, he found himself pausing in the middle of the kitchen, struck by a sudden realization. The scene before him, friends chatting in the living room, the smell of home-cooked food in the air, the sound of genuine laughter, was everything he had ever wanted, but had never allowed himself to have. In that moment, Alex understood that the greatest con he had ever pulled was the one he had played on himself for so many years. He had convinced himself that love, trust, and genuine connection were weaknesses to be exploited rather than strengths to be cherished. He had believed that true happiness could be found in the thrill of the next big score, rather than in the quiet joy of a life well lived. As he rejoined his friends, a smile playing on his lips, Alex felt a profound sense of gratitude. He had been given a second chance, an opportunity to rewrite his story. And while he knew that his journey was far from over, that there would always be new challenges to face and growth to pursue, he was no longer afraid of the path ahead. For the first time in his life, Alex Reeves was exactly where he wanted to be, surrounded by people he loved, doing work that mattered. And that, he realized, was the biggest score of all. As the evening wound down and Alex bid farewell to his guests, he found himself alone with Evelyn on the balcony. They stood in comfortable silence, gazing out at the city lights. "You know," Evelyn said softly, "when I first spotted you at that gala, I saw a bit of myself in you. The cleverness, the charm, the hunger for something more. But I also saw the potential for so much good." Alex turned to her, his eyes filled with emotion. "You took a huge risk on me, Evelyn. Why?" Evelyn smiled, her eyes twinkling with a mix of mischief and wisdom. "Because, my dear boy, the greatest cons are the ones we pull on ourselves. You had convinced yourself that you were nothing more than a trickster, a thief. I simply gave you the opportunity to prove yourself wrong." As her words sank in, Alex felt a wave of understanding wash over him. His entire journey, from cunning conman to respected teacher and community member, had been about unlearning the lies he had told himself and discovering his true potential. "Thank you," he said simply, knowing that no words could fully express his gratitude. Evelyn patted his hand affectionately. "Just promise me one thing, Alex. Never stop growing. Never stop challenging yourself to be better. That's the real secret to a fulfilling life." As Evelyn left and Alex stood alone on the balcony, he made a silent vow to himself. He would honor Evelyn's faith in him, Maria's love, and the community's trust by continuing to strive for growth and positive impact. The cunning young man who had once sought to steal a fortune had found something far more valuable, a life rich with purpose, love, and integrity. And that, Alex realized, was the greatest wealth of all.